Welcome back to Mom in Mind. I'm your host, Dr. Kat. On our episode today, we have a guest who's sharing her personal story through postpartum depression, anxiety, and OCD. Jessica Cuomo is on to share with us what it's like to have postpartum OCD and the things that she would really like for people to understand about dealing with perinatal mental health, very specifically, the importance of seeing a mental health professional. She's also sharing with us about her memoir, A Dance in the DSM, My Tango with Postpartum Depression, Anxiety, and OCD. After graduating from Fairfield University with a bachelor's in English and a concentration in creative writing, she went on to teach high school English for 6 years, library science for 2 years, and currently teaches communications at a local high school. When Jessica had children, she experienced her first mental health crisis, which inspired her to share her story in hopes of helping others who suffer from mental illness. What I really appreciate about Jessica sharing her story is that discussing intrusive thoughts and how to overcome the shame and guilt of those is really challenging. And in order to do that, we kind of have to face it ourselves and understand that something is going on for us that we need and deserve help for. So thanks to Jessica for coming on and sharing her story. Let's hear from her now. Welcome, Jess. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm grateful that you're coming on to share your story. And I think it's, the stories of people who've gone through postpartum OCD and depression, of course, are really important to hear because tend to hear so much more about depression and anxiety. And I think when people hear OCD, they're like, "Oh, what does that mean? What is that?" Or they might have some misunderstandings about it. And so I'm really grateful that you're going to share your experience and help people understand it better.
Thank you so much for having me to talk about it. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So wherever you feel comfortable to start with your story, you can just launch right in.
Sure. So I had my first daughter 11 years ago. So I got pregnant 12 years ago. And the mental health landscape in America was significantly different,
Hmm.
at that point. And, it's actually improved. We still have a long way to go, but it's improved a lot in 10 years, which is pretty great.
Yeah.
So I'd been relatively asymptomatic for most of my life. I had had a few acute episodes. Now looking back, on my life, knowing what I know now, I can see different flare-ups of, mental health episodes, but I was pretty much subclinical until, pregnancy. And right away I had some perinatal anxiety and OCD and intrusive thoughts. I didn't know what they were at the time, but
This is
I was
during pregnancy or postpartum?
during pregnancy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I always say this wrong. It's like hyperstasis graviosus or something. I had the thing where you throw up from the time you wake up to the
Yes.
time you go to sleep.
Hyperemesis gravidarum.
That's it. Sorry. Yeah. Whoa. What I I can't even say it. It was so bad.
Yeah.
So like if my Zofran wore off at 3 in the morning, I was waking up throwing up bile at 3 in the morning. Like it
Oh.
was it was like the craziest thing. My mother had that too. So I
Mm.
had expected, that was going to happen, but I also started to have I'm going to date myself. This whole conversation is going to be super dating, by the way. But the pregnancy center was really big at,
Mm.
12 years ago. So I really started to have these like intrusive thoughts about like, and just paranoias about what I was eating, what I
Mhm.
was putting in my body, what shampoos I was using, what, detergents, and just like things that could hurt the baby. And so I was really cautious about that. I'm very active and physical, and I was worried. I was like helping my husband tile our bathroom. And I was like, oh, I lifted too many boxes, just like little paranoia type things that had, I'm neurotic. I'm Italian American. Like that neuroses is like our breakfast cereal. And so it just kind of, I was hard to tell what that was from, whether it was clinical or not. And then it just got unmanageable kind of at that point, where not unmanageable, but it got really bad. And my brother had worked at McLean Mental Hospital in Boston, so he
Mm.
had some awareness of mental health issues and some of these things. So I would always like call him in panics, like, I ate a piece of ham. I think I killed the baby, and he'd be like,
Oh
"Okay,
no.
like you need to just stop,"
Yeah, it's really intense.
Yeah, so he helped me significantly, which was amazing. And so, the once I and I also have the I confess, confession. I always joke that's like the offshoot of being Catholic is one of my OCDs is I have to confess everything, like,
Oh gosh.
like
Yeah,
let me
yeah.
tell you everything about my life.
Uh,
Um, and so it got better throughout the pregnancy. It ebbed and flowed. As I got closer to delivery, it got a little bit worse, obviously, as you get nervous to give birth for the first time. And then when I did deliver, things were, obviously delivery is intense. Mine was a little bit more, I pushed for like 3 hours and 45 minutes and was awake for a very long time, didn't sleep a lot. And then, symptoms kind of flared after that. Once my daughter was born, I felt this like intense wave of like hormones hit. That's what I experienced it
mm-hmm.
as. I don't know what it
Mm-hmm.
actually was.
Yeah.
Um, and so it felt like I was like going down a roller coaster of hormones. And I was terrified of SIDS. So
Sure.
absolutely paranoid, like, you have no control and your baby could just like die at any minute was what I thought. So I did all of the things, I wrapped her like a cigar, like
Mm.
put the binky in the mouth, like
Mm-hmm.
leaned her up, like all the things that I could do. I say she like slept like a aesthetic monk or something. Like it was crazy. And then I slept with my hand on her, to
Mm.
make sure that she was breathing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I was not sleeping. And
No.
yeah, no. So by like day 5, obviously things were not going great as far as that goes. I had been discharged and I had seen Shutter Island. I don't know if you're familiar with this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I had no clue about postpartum psychosis, but all of a sudden I was terrified of it. And I thought that um, I thought it was like a possession, like you would just become like you would become
Oh,
psychotic, kill your kid, and then like wake up from it and be like, oh my God, what did I do? So I was like terrified. So my husband was like, you need to call your midwives. I was like, okay. So I called my midwives, and one of them was on call. She was like delivering, and it was very hard to get a hold of. And so she said to me, do you have a family history of severe mental illness, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, anything like that? And I was like, no. And so she's like, okay, you're fine. You're going to be
oh,
fine. Like,
okay.
that you're not going to have it. It's fine. I was like, okay, okay, cool, cool,
Mm,
cool, cool.
yeah.
So, so I felt really good about that because I listened to medical professionals and that was what I had needed to hear at the time. So I was like, good, we're good.
Mm-hmm.
Life's good. Um, you know, and it slowly got better and it was slow. Like it was a slow progression. I started to sleep a little bit more. She did say come in for a 2-week screening. So I was like, okay, I'll make it to the 2-week screening. And I was feeling a little bit better to the 2-week screening. I was sleeping like a little bit more. The SIDS thing had calmed down a little bit, not much, but it was okay. But I went to the screening, and 12 years ago, the screening was for postpartum depression.
Yeah.
That was what it was. Like, are you not experienced? Like, do you find things funny that you used to find funny? And it's like, well, I mean, my day to day is not funny, but like if I watch a funny TV show, I'm gonna laugh at it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I missed a lot of the symptoms, right? Because mine was OCD. Like yeah, it's funny, but if I think about my kid not breathing, I'm gonna go into a full blown panic. So, um, life got better. My baby was colicky, so that sucked intensely, and
Yeah.
she like that it's normal to not find an infant that screams in your face while she's awake enjoyable. Um,
Right.
it's not
Right.
enjoyable.
Yeah.
Um, we got her on like Prevacid, which really helped. Like she stopped screaming in my face. Like I called the doctor in tears, like my baby's mad. I gave her life, and he was like, "Yeah, you got to come
Oh,
in. Like we got to get her or something." And she was better. Like she ended up being good, and we got into a nice rhythm. And then I went back to work, and
at about
I
how old was she?
She was, I want to say like I went back 13 weeks, 14 weeks maybe.
Mm.
So relatively speaking, I had a nice maternity leave. I was only supposed to have like a 6 week maternity leave because I'm a teacher and basically like a factory worker from the 1800s, and they want you back at work. They want you back at work as soon as possible. I'm
Hmm.
kidding. I love my job, but maternity leave was pretty draconian.
Hmm.
So I went back and I had real guilt about that, like real aggressive. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, in the Italian American community a lot back in the day, like you stayed home, you took care of your kids. Motherhood was the pinnacle of everything. So I had a lot of guilt
Yeah.
about that, and
Were other people adding to that, like making you feel guilty about it, or like, oh, you should stay home, or that kind of stuff?
not as much, no, because most people that I'm friends with, most of my friends, I was one of the first people to have a
Mm.
kid. So
Hmm.
they didn't, I was kind of the pioneer of all of this. So no one really had too much to say.
Hmm.
Um, and in some ways, the expectation is to go back to work,
Yeah.
other than outside of, my family. So it was kind of a mix of, I needed to go back to work financially.
Hmm.
I wanted to stay home and I didn't. I did and I didn't. I wanted, I was very conflicted about the whole thing. But then the stress of it was too much. And around 5 months, 4 or 5 months, I remember it was on Mother's Day. I joke, it's like, I write about it in the book, like it's like the worst Mother's Day present ever. I started having intrusive thoughts about being a pedophile.
Mm.
So I, uh,
So
you know,
tough.
yeah. So, in my family, there had been an instance of someone being assaulted, a child being assaulted, and it basically like ruined that person's life and then ruined everyone's life around that person. And it was just like so intense. So I've always grown up that like, pedophilia is like the worst thing in the entire universe. Like, that's just what it is. And it is the root of all problems and yada, yada. So, when your mind is like tricking you into thinking that you are a pedophile, right? And there's
Mm.
no rational reason. Like there's no rational thing. Like I'm a high school teacher. I don't even like, other than my children, I don't even really like little kids. Like like I've had
Uh-huh.
to teach in like an elementary school setting once and it's like, oh my God, is this over? Like I'm like watching the clock, like please, Jesus,
Yeah.
give me strength, get me out of here,
Right.
like,
Right.
so the fact that I could even, like, my rational mind knew that that wasn't a thing, but I wasn't in a rational mind,
Right. Yes. Yes.
so it's like you trick yourself into things like that. And, you have these like visual pictures. I used to watch like Law and Order Special Victims Unit, which was always a terrible idea. But like, you'd
Hmm.
have these like pictures flash in your head of like a dead body of a kid somewhere. And I was like, what kind of monster does this happen to? Like this is crazy. Like I'm a monster. And I was like, if this is my reality and this is who I am, I'm going to kill myself. And so I luckily have also confession. So I confessed to my parents, and my parents, believe it or not, didn't make me feel better because I was like, I'm a pedophile and I'm like going to kill myself. And they were like, we love you anyway. We don't care who you are, like blah, 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 which was not what I wanted. Like it was the most loving thing in the entire world that you could say to someone, but it like didn't make me feel better. Right. So I confessed it to my brother, and he was like, "Oh, Jess, hmm, that's OCD. Like that's like a textbook one." And I was like, "Oh, it is?" And he was like, "Yeah." And the only thing I knew about OCD was from like watching The Aviator. You know what I mean? And
Uh-huh.
my house is a mess. Like I am not a stereotypical,
Mm.
like I don't fit any of the things I thought I knew about
Right.
OCD, right? Like
Right.
I don't
Right.
wash my hands that much. I wish my house was clean. Um, So he's like, well, what are you doing to avoid, like, because I didn't like giving baths. I didn't like changing diapers, things like that. And I was like, but I'm not, my house isn't clean. I can't be OCD. And he's like, well, what are you avoiding? And I'm like, well, I don't like doing this. I sleep with a bra on. He's like, okay, you need to stop sleeping with the bra on or it's going to turn into a winter coat. He's like, like you need, like, so he kind of
Mhm.
gave me the tools as like a lay person to be like exposure therapy.
Mhm. Mhm.
He's like, you need to go see someone. Like you need to like go get professional help. So I was like, okay. So I found some help. Um, and I'm sure you know this because you work in the mental health field, right? That not all help is created equal,
Right.
and
Yep.
not all professionals are. And my therapist was wonderful. She was very, very nice, but this was not her strong suit, I would say. Like it
Mhm.
wasn't her area. It wasn't her area of expertise.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't fault her for that. I would say probably postpartum OCD is not a lot of people's expertise
Mhm. Mhm.
in fairness. And so I was like, I didn't want to go on medicine because I didn't want to stop breastfeeding. And there was no universe. If I wasn't eating ham, I wasn't taking an SSRI while I was breastfeeding.
Mm.
Like that wasn't going to happen. I don't care what you showed me. Right. So it was
Right.
like, I was going to suck this up and make it through. And then after my daughter weaned, I had done some like CBT techniques, cognitive behavior therapy techniques. I had read this really super helpful book, um, that's eluding me right now. But it talks about like the 4 steps, brain lock. That's it, brain lock, freeing
Mm.
yourself from obsessive compulsive disorder, and that had really helped me. But by November, like by 10 months, I was not well. And finally, I went on medication, which I had
Mm.
really tried very hard not to do. I
Mm.
exercised
Right.
like crazy. Like I really went above and beyond to not do that. Um, and it's very common with like OCD. I had to go on a high dose and it took it a long time for it to like really
Mhm.
work.
Mhm.
But it finally did kick in and I got better, significantly better. Life became better.
Can I ask
Yeah.
what did you notice initially in terms of relief or feeling better?
So, um, well, the intrusive thoughts settled down. Like you might even still have them, but you could like flick them away.
Mhm.
Like it was like, oh yeah, that's
Mhm.
OCD,
Mhm.
like gone,
Mhm.
bye. And that made life so much better. Being
Mhm.
able to do that. Just being able to, because by the end I was starting to get depressed, like I was
Mm.
starting to not
Mhm.
care about fashion, which I always loved, or like what I was eating. Like,
Mhm.
I'd lost weight, which was like, yeah, you lose weight. And it's like, but I don't even like, I'd rather be fat and happy than like thin and miserable.
Totally. Yes, I do.
Um, yeah, so it was just like one of those kind of things. And so that kind of stuff went away. I was able to like enjoy life more. The intrusive thoughts got better. I not only like, because in the beginning of CBT for me, like I could tell myself things like, you're clearly not a pedophile. Like, this is stupid, right? But I didn't feel it. Like, I
Mhm.
knew it, but I
Mhm.
didn't
Mhm.
feel it.
Right.
But once the serotonin got in, then it was like, oh, yeah, that's really embarrassing. Like, yeah, that's
Mm.
really stupid. Like, you feel stupid because it's like, that was so great. Like, that was so irrational. So
Yeah.
things you could get perspective on what was
Sure.
irrational,
Sure,
you
but
know?
to your point, that is such a real struggle that to be able to know something and that almost can if it feels so different than what you know to be true, that can
Mm.
almost make it feel, that much worse. Because you're
Yeah.
like, I know that this doesn't make sense. Why
Yeah.
can't I just like,
Feel it.
yeah, yeah, or
Yeah.
not think it anymore, or get over
Yeah.
it, quote unquote, get over it, or all those things you tell
Yeah.
yourself. Oh, it's hard.
Yeah. And it's you, and like with OCD, like it's like this string that you just want to pull.
Mhm.
Like, it's not right, right? You know that if you pull the string, it's going to unravel the sweater. But you're like, but that little freaking string is there. And
Mhm, mhm.
I just want to tug it. So, like, it's like the biggest itch you've ever encountered. But if you itch it, it's going to turn into a gunshot wound, you know?
Mhm,
But like, you
mhm,
just want to itch it.
mhm.
Like, it's the itchiest thing. So it's like
That like the obsessive part and then
yeah,
not
that
doing
like,
the compulsive part.
or just think about it. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
because to me, it was like, just think about it. Okay, just for 1 minute. Well, how many pedophiles could potentially live on the block? Start thinking, okay, well, if there's
I see what you mean.
6% in the population, And that means how many people live on, like that thought, like you just want to
Mm,
pull the string so that it
yeah.
goes.
Right.
Right. And like when on the medication for me, I was like, all right, well, there's a string coming out of the sweater. That's life, like don't touch it.
Mm,
You
mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I know it's going to pull. Like
So
that's
much
life,
easier. Yeah.
like it made things so much easier. It did. It made like life more enjoyable and it took a lot of the guilt away.
Mm,
Yeah, it was a big game changer. But again, I went through a primary to do that. And so she had said to me, I was like, I knew I wanted to have two kids. And I was like, if I and that was such like a night. It was amazing. Like my child was amazing and my experience with her was amazing, but everything else was such a nightmare that I was like, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it. Like I can't physically get
to have a
myself back
second.
into it to have a second. Yeah. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
like, we have to do this like soon or I'm not going to do it. And the primary was like, oh, well, you only need to be on it for like 3 to 6 months and then you're good to go off. Because
Okay.
that's what happens when you go to a primary doctor for psychiatric help. So it was great. And so I did it. I went off. I got pregnant right away and I felt better. I was super confident. Like I was like, I got this. I know what's happening. I have a 50% shot of this happening again. It's not going to happen. I know what's happening. I'm going to do everything right this time. Like I know what this is.
Mm,
Um, the pedophile stuff was gone. The SID stuff was significantly gone. Like I got this. And I was good. Like I had a good pregnancy. I mean, I was a whale, but I gained like 90 pounds or something insane. But I was like, I didn't even care. Like life was like good. And then I had the baby and the delivery was better. I was able to like not use drugs, which I was really excited about to like have a natural childbirth because I wasn't able to do that with my
mm,
first.
mm.
Like I was like killing the game in my mind, like,
Right. Right.
you know, and my 2 year old, she was two at the time. My second daughter was born, my 2 year old turned into like a psycho. She went into like the terrible twos. I
Yeah.
thought she may have been suffering from sociopathy. But I had the easiest baby in the world. So I'm like killing this motherhood game. I'm taking them to library classes. Like life feels good. And then at 6 weeks, I stopped sleeping completely.
Yikes.
Boom. It
Oh.
was like hammer
Immediate?
dropped.
Oh.
In hindsight, it wasn't immediate. Like there's always little things that creep up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like things start to get upsetting, so you avoid them. Like
Mm-hmm.
I read
Mm-hmm.
something and it's like, oh, I can't watch that on TV. That's going to upset me. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like
Yeah.
little things like
Yeah.
that until it
Yeah.
gets to the point where you can literally only watch Project Runway on TV. You know what I mean? Like that's the only thing
Yes.
you can watch because everything else is upsetting, But
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
at the time you don't realize that that's what it is because
Uh-huh.
it's like these gradual things. So at 6 weeks I completely stopped sleeping, um
Yikes.
and was not and then just wasn't doing well. My therapist retired, went into like institutional practice or whatever. I always joke I
Mm-hmm.
scared her out of practice. Um, and then my midwives were lovely and great at birth and should not have been giving me postpartum care, in my opinion. They just weren't equipped.
Mm-hmm.
They gave me Ambien to help me sleep, which did not help me sleep at all. Um, for whatever reason, apparently I was just like, you hear those stories of like people still operating machinery, but they're asleep. That did not happen. I was wide awake, wide awake.
Wow. Not
Did
like
not sleep.
not feeling tired?
Oh no, I was exhausted all the time.
Okay, got it.
I felt like I felt like
Mm, mm,
exhausted, like my bones were tired, my hair was
yeah,
tired, like
yeah.
I was exhausted, but I couldn't shut down. Like the shutting down was not going to happen. Um, and so I went into the midwife. She gave me, I think, like 25 milligrams of Zoloft, I want to say, or
Mm,
something like that.
mm,
Something that, like, when I finally got to see a psychopharmacologist, he was like, yeah, that's not a therapeutic dose for like an ant. I was like, cool, 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 cool. Good, good, good.
Right.
So I ended, so I had to stop breastfeeding, which I felt like huge trauma about.
This
'Cause
is still like how far into postpartum?
this is now 6 weeks postpartum with my second.
Mm.
And so I had to stop breastfeeding because I wanted to take a Xanax. And I wanted to go on Zoloft, and I wanted to go even like, and I didn't care what anyone said. Like if I took any medicine, I was like, nope, not doing it. My
Mm.
cousin's almost a genius and she was bottle fed. She's fine. Like this
Mm-hmm.
is this is what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I weaned, and then I would take like a Xanax, and it didn't even like dent the anxiety that I was feeling.
Wow.
And then I would feel significantly worse afterward. Like
Hmm.
I would rebound and then
Mm-hmm.
be like crazy. So I went back to my primary, which was what the person who had helped me last time, and she gave me trazodone, and I finally like got some sleep,
Mm-hmm.
got felt good, and she was like, she put me to a psychopharmacologist, and she was like, you need to go see like a professional, this is not my area, because I had called her like
Mm-hmm.
twice about like, like what do I do or whatever, and she was like, yeah, this is not for me, like you need to
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
someone for real. So I did. I got in with someone, and he was great, and we started the long road to recovery, and it was a long road. I like I said before, I need high doses, and it took me months to get better, and that was with
True, because
like,
you had to ramp up dosing. You
so like
can't.
he
Yeah.
started me on a high dose. He started me like I was on trazodone, then he started me on 20 milligrams of Lexapro. He was like, we're gonna hit this hard, like,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna battle through it because that's what it
Yeah.
is. And like, so I tried that, and even with that, like I had small ticks that you could tell it was working. Like I was starting to
Uh-uh.
sleep a little bit better, like, but
Mm.
I was still like I was living in a panic attack.
Oh my gosh.
Like I don't
How
even know
long
what
did
my
that phase last? That like living in a panic attack feeling?
probably a month.
It's a long time.
Yeah, it was real. It was real. And like it was so bad that like the OCD didn't even, I kind of almost even stopped having OCD because like I knew like anytime I started to feel it, I was like, oh, that's OCD. But
Mm.
it was like, but I still want you to feel terrible anyway.
Oh
Like
gosh.
it
So
was
you
like
had
the
like the
steroids.
anxiety, but you didn't have to
Like
like obsess.
I guess the obsession was, am I ever going to sleep again? And I ever
Oh,
going to am I ever going to get better again? So
yeah.
those were like
Yep.
my loops. You
Yep.
know what I
Yep.
mean? Those
Hmm.
those were the thought loops that I was having. But I was just basically like living in a panic attack all the time. Um, that heightened awareness, the heightened
Hmm.
heartbeat,
Hmm.
it just felt like my insides was on fire all the time.
That's brutal.
And
And
yeah,
still not like you're not sleeping still, really, like through the
no,
night
so
or.
so the trazodone helped. I was sleeping. I started sleeping. Like it wasn't amazing sleep. It wasn't the most restorative sleep in the universe, but like
Hmm.
eventually it became like I was sleeping okay. Like I
Hmm.
would wake up in the morning. I always like would joke that like the mornings were the worst. Like I would like wake up at like 5 in the morning and like just like want to cry.
Oh,
Like just like I can't make it through the day today. Oh my god! Like
yeah. Yeah.
it was so intense. But I would exercise like a lot to try and like get they say like an hour of exercise is like 4 hours of an SSRI. So
Hmm.
I got like beach body on demand, and like was
Oh,
like boot camp crazy in my living room. Like if you
just
didn't
trying
know
to
I
like
was
knock
crazy,
this
you
out.
could tell by looking at me. Like I
Oh,
was I was like working out so hard, and it helped. It did help like significantly. And I just like crawled my way back. It probably took like 6 months to get like relatively back. I had like in the process of all of that with the med management stuff, um I panicked about taking the trazodone and the Lexapro at the same time. So I was like, I'm not going to take both. Like I don't want to be over medicated. So I was like, I'm going to just like do one. And when I started titrating off of the trazodone, I mistook, like trazodone's non-addictive forming. but I took the insomnia because I would like wake up in a panic.
Mm.
And I thought that that was me having withdrawals from the trazodone. Like I
Oh,
didn't know what was happening.
right. Well, so
Um,
that was something you kind of decided to do on your own without
yes,
like the psychiatrist didn't know.
he was like, trazodone's non-habit forming, like you can
Hmm.
be on it.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, but I don't want to be on it.
Hmm.
And he was like, okay, well then I guess don't take it. Like, what do you want?
Hmm.
Like it was kind of like, what are you gonna do at that? I don't know.
Yeah.
So he was
Yeah.
like, all right, well, don't take it then, I guess. So then I was like in my mind convinced that I had formed a habit to it. So I was like not going to take it. And then,
Oh, I see.
so in the process of this, like not sleeping, I had a ovarian cyst burst,
Oh
and
my gosh.
and it,
Oh
so I
my
ended up
gosh.
so I ended up going to the ER, and in my mind, I
Yeah, you
couldn't
did.
tell if this was in my mind. Like I didn't know what
Oh,
was like, is this actual pain? That am I in labor? Like, could I be in labor? Could I be pregnant again? Like
oh gosh, right.
I'm 4 months postpartum. Like, how is this happening? Like, can you get pregnant when you're pregnant? Like I'm like panicking. Like I'm
Uh-huh.
like, what is going on in my life right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like really intense. So I ended up like at that moment, and I was still doing really poorly because this was at the beginning of I had just started seeing this psychopharmacologist like a
Yeah.
week prior,
Uh-huh.
when the cyst burst and everything.
Oh my gosh.
And I had been up for like 24 hours from the hospital. And my husband was like, I got to go to work. And so he was like handing me the baby and my 2 year old. And I had come home from the hospital, and I was like, I I can't do this. Like I can't be with them alone all day today. Like I can't do it. And he was like, all right, well, I'll take a couple of hours off, go get some sleep. And I was like, okay. And then like I went to go lay down, and he took them for like a walk. And like in the book, I call it like my yellow wallpaper moment. Have you ever read
Mm,
that short story,
yes.
The Yellow Wall? Like
Yeah.
that was my moment. Like I was like, I laid down, I was on fire, but I couldn't sleep. Like I was like so
Mm-hmm.
exhausted, and the anxiety was so high. And I was
Mm,
like, and I just like almost disassociated. Do you know what I mean? Like
mm-hmm.
I'm having these racing thoughts. I got up, I had no shoes on, I walked outside, like, but like the grass was weird colors, and it was like a wong 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 kind of feeling. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like I
super
was
intense. Yeah.
like super intense, and I was like, where am I going to go? Like I feel like I'm on fire right now. Like if I jump in this water, what will happen? Like I was
Mm,
totally like disassociating, you know? And I had no one to call at that point. I called my old therapist. She wasn't working anymore. Um, and I got in touch. I had started with a new therapist, and she fortunately was like, okay, this is, you're having a panic attack. Like, you need to like breathe through this. Like, she like
mm-hmm.
kind of talked me down for a minute. And she's like, but you need to get in touch with your psychopharmacologist. So, like, I remember, um, like, I called my best friend, who I had just met with my daughter like a year prior. She's now my best friend. At the time, she was
Mm-hmm.
just like a close friend, a good friend. Um, and I called her, and I said, I'm waiting to hear back from my doctor, but I'm really not doing well. Like, can you come to my house? And there was like a pile of wood. And I just remember I'm sitting on the pile of wood, and she was on her way to like a really important job. Like it was like the first day on her job. And she, without hesitation, was like, I'll be there in a minute,
Oh,
and
that's
came and
super
like,
cool.
yeah. And like sat next to me, and I'm clearly like mentally out of it, like I'm just not
Yeah.
there. And she
Yeah.
held my hand, and she was like, it's going to be okay,
Oh,
you know?
wow.
And it was the most amazing experience of my life because I didn't feel like I was going to be okay. Do you know what I mean? But just
Yeah.
like like so far, all of my craziness was within my immediate family, you
Mm,
know?
mm.
And I didn't want to go to a hospital. Like I was afraid of being unemployable. I was afraid of not being able to like take care
Oh
of my
gosh.
family. I was afraid of the stigma of mental
Yeah.
health,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So to tell her that, and to have her say, like, I love you and I'm going to be your friend anyway,
Oh, that's amazing.
sorry.
No,
Yeah.
that's just amazing. Like those
Yeah.
are those moments where like the lifeline came when you needed it and it worked.
Yeah. 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 And then I call her husband and he was very funny. We always have like a funny joke and he was like, man, hormone's a bitch, right? I'm like, I'm like,
Tell
I
me
love
about
that you said that. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just wasn't what I was expecting to be a
hmm
reaction, you know? Like
hmm
when you say something that I thought was so embarrassing and so stigmatizing that he just like got it, you know?
That's cool.
And, and that was like the road to my recovery was that, you know, like I had a nice group of people that were gentle and that didn't, um, you know, that loved me anyway, you know?
It's so powerful.
Yeah,
It
it
it's
was.
and it's not always available.
No.
Like you had it when you needed it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was why I wrote the book. You know, I wrote a book about my experience because I recognize I recognize my privilege, you know,
Mm,
like I am you know, upper middle class from an educated family from, you know, a brother who who's a doctor, who works
mm.
in medicine with friends, a supportive husband, like
Right.
I have it so good like I have guilt about how good I have it
Mm,
and that could still happen to me and I could still feel that way. Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah, 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 yeah.
And I know that like there are people who don't have it how I have it and have it how I had it or worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And if
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
could and so that's my mission, you know. I want to like help people and let them know that there is hope and that there is a way out and that, you know, like if no one else is here for you, I'm here for you. Not in like a
Mm.
professional. You need to go see
No, yeah,
a
yeah.
medical professional. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like I love you and I will and I'm here
Yeah.
for you and like I see you, you know?
And so needed what you're doing and I mean sharing your story, but writing the book and making it accessible so, like that people can find it and read it and you sharing your story. This is the lifeline for somebody else who's
Yeah.
hearing themselves in your story and who's going to go get the help because they know exactly what you're describing, even if it's not the same circumstances or the same
Oh yeah.
exact intrusive thoughts or
Right.
whatever. This is why this is powerful. Like sharing the story it's this is real,
Yeah.
super real.
Yeah. No, thank you for doing it. You know, it's very, you know, it's very helpful to share stories and, you know, to the capacity that you're able to hear it, right? Like if it's like
Hmm.
too triggering or it makes things
Yeah.
worse, like obviously not good, but like, you know, to know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and there's
Hmm.
resources and
Hmm.
we're so much better. Like we're so much
Yeah.
better than we were
Yeah.
12 years ago. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
yeah.
Still some ways to go. And
Yeah.
well, like considering what you've been through, either if you were to tell somebody else who was going through the exact same thing or what you would kind of tell past you now, what are some things that you wish you would have known or you want people to know or to do or consider?
So my like goal, right? My mission here is to let people know that your mental health is your physical health,
Hmm.
right? Like if you had cancer, you wouldn't feel shame and hide from treatment.
Right.
You would you wouldn't vacillate about taking a pill or going to get chemo. I suffered for so long, tried everything. Like I cut out foods. Like you know, some of them were helpful, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
used essential oils. Like, I mean, like you name it. If it like whatever was on the back of a cereal box, I tried. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right,
But like,
right.
but like I wouldn't take a pill. And I'm not saying that all and like when I finally did, like it was very hard. Like it's not like a
Yeah,
here's a Tylenol, this is gonna make it better. Like it's a
yeah,
process, but
right.
you have to look at your mental health. It is your physical health. It is
Mhm,
not something imaginary. It is not
mhm.
something to feel stigmatized or embarrassed about. I have a generalized anxiety disorder that I will have for the rest of my life. I tried once I was in remission for like 3 or 4 years. I tried to get off of my SSRIs. I had titrated down. The second it was all out of my system, I relapsed like a hammer, like a guillotine, relapsed. Like I will probably have to be on a pill for the rest of my life. And that's okay. I don't want to be. Every day, there's a little thread that's like, maybe you could try, maybe you can get off of it, you know? But like, and that's not everybody's story. Some people don't need it, and some people will never need it. Some people need it for a little bit and come off. But like, if I had diabetes, if I had high blood pressure, I wouldn't hide that from my mom's group. I wouldn't not say it in mixed company. Do you know what I'm saying?
For
like,
sure.
You wouldn't hide the fact that you have to take like a Lipitor, right? You would just say it.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't feel that way. And that's where we are. Like, yes, there are some people who are over medicated, and yes, medicine and the pharmaceutical companies and blah, blah, blah. Like, yes, all of those things can be true, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But at the end of the day, there are times it is life-saving. Like my quality of life, I have been able to be a better mother, which is, the host of everything for my meaning of being is to be able to be a good mother, and be a good person, be a good human, and wife. And I'm able to do that because of the medical treatments I received, and I can talk to everyone about it and not feel ashamed because I'm healthy, because it's hard to do that when you're healthy, when you're not healthy. Right.
Right.
But when I'm healthy, like, it's not embarrassing. Like when I tore my ACL, I wasn't like, oh, don't look at my brace. Like it's hideous. No, I crutched around, like that's what it is. Like this is life, and that's what you need. And that's what we need that's where we need to get to as a society, where we can give each other grace. And like recognize that there is a spectrum for mental illness, and that you can be anywhere on the spectrum in life, and at different points in life you can be at different places on it as well, and like
that's so true.
And that's okay. And we need to give people grace and actually look at it as something that can be treatable, right? And like treat it.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, sounds straightforward, but obviously, and a lot of people who've been on the journey know that it can be hard to just get the help that you need sometimes.
Well, of course, and I've said this before, like I did a TEDx talk about this, and I say it in there that like when you break your leg, you don't have to walk to the orthopedic on your broken leg. Right. You can get a crutch, or someone can carry you, or you call an ambulance and they take you and you get the proper treatment. But with mental health, it's your brain that's trouble. And it's your brain you need to like look online, to call someone, to talk to someone on a phone, to know the questions that you have to ask, to do all of these things. Like it all requires your brain, and your brain isn't working well. So you're like, it's just so overwhelming. Like I can't even tell you, like I would stare at the phone and like have to like go in my mind, okay, what kind of voice am I going to use so that I don't sound crazy, so that they take me seriously? What's the vocab I can use? I don't want them to take my kid. What can I, like, I'm planning all of these things that I can say. Right. And then it's just like, and that's not what you have to do with any other medical condition. And that's what makes it so difficult and so unique at the same time.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, you said that so well. And I hope that people who are listening can really hear that. It's 100% what you said. It's, pardon me, like putting the burden on somebody who's struggling to fix everything themselves and just be better, or whatever those, the quips are that people say, like snap out of it or whatever. That's not how this works. And yeah, can I pause here for just a second?
Yeah, of course.
Just in terms of our time, and I just want to make sure you're getting in you got in all of your story that you wanted to get in for now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Um, and then how do you feel about, um, yeah, in terms of wrapping up, are there any other points you want to be sure to get to before we close?
I feel like I covered most of the things that I wanted to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that, that I said. If at some point I could just say the title of the book and
Oh,
everything,
for
but
sure.
other than that,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
what I
but
want to
other
end
than
on.
that, yeah, other than that, I feel like I covered everything that I was like really kind of passionate and wanted to say.
Okay. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Um, okay, then yeah, we can talk about your book and then we'll close.
Okay,
Okay. All
great.
right. So I know you didn't give us all of your story in your book, and it's all written out there for everyone to read. And what is it called, and where can people find it?
So my book is called A Dance in the DSM, My Tango with Postpartum Depression, Anxiety, and OCD. It's available on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and most places that, you can buy books, they can order it as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and it tells my whole story like in more detail. I try and like have the funny parenting stories and the reality of parenting as well kind of woven in, so it's a story of hope. It's not just like it's intense at times, but it's not just like a big punch in the face of all the sad stuff all at once. There's like,
Right.
there's funny things that go on. I think hopefully funny things that go on in between too that I try
Hmm.
and interweave, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Just, I mean, in the way you've told your own story now, I'm sure that the book is written in sort of the same voice as your. I appreciate that you're sort of able to bring lightness to things that for now feel lighter, but
Yeah.
that there's also some real depth and some real reality to your experience that at least sharing it with us here today. I'm sure is evident in the book as well. And yeah, I hope that everybody can, especially for people who have struggled. I have shared a little bit of my own story too with anxiety and depression and OCD in postpartum and being totally shocked by it. It's brutal. It is brutal, and it's hard to know that it's hard to feel rather that you're alone in it. Um, so I hope that people can go and find your book and see parts of themselves represented there and feel just like all the things you're saying, just busting through this stigma and calling BS on all of it and just get the help you need. I love that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, definitely. And it's just, and and that's kind of the title is, it's a dance in the DSM. Like you don't have to live. I always joke, like, I don't have to live there. Like sometimes I'm, I am asymptomatic and
Hmm.
living like the dream. And sometimes I'm not, and I need some
Yep.
help. And, like I dance in and out of it.
Totally.
And that's, I don't have to live there, and
Yep.
I'm not going to live out of it.
Yeah,
Like
right. Right.
what it is, that's life. It's ups
Absolutely.
and downs. But there
Absolutely.
is going to be ups, and you just have to hold on to that hope.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jessica. It's been a delight to talk with you and hear your story. And I just appreciate you sharing.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity. I love all the short stories that you share, and it's really important.
Thank you. Please do connect with Jessica at jessicacuomo.com, on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Jessica Cuomo. And you can find her book, it's available everywhere online. For anyone who has experienced intrusive thoughts or perinatal mental health conditions, please know that you're not alone on this journey. There are so many of us who have been through something similar to what you're experiencing. And even if it's not exactly what you're going through, we really, really understand how hard it is. And we are hopeful for you on your healing journey. Thank you for being with us. Until next time.